Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
For the past 5 years, I've lived in the same apartment complex, and one of the best perks has been my parking spot, right in front of my building. It's not officially assigned, but everyone knows which spots belong to which apartments. It's an unwritten rule we've all followed without a problem. Until last month. I work as a night shift nurse at the local hospital. My shifts are brutal, 12 hours of running around, dealing with emergencies, and trying to keep people alive. By the time I get home, I'm completely drained. All I want is to park my car and collapse into bed. Last Tuesday was certainly rough. We had 3 emergency cases come in back to back, and I ended up staying 2 hours past the end of my shift. It was almost 9 a.m. when I finally made it home, exhausted and desperately in need of sleep. But as I turned onto my street, I saw something that made my blood boil. Someone had parked in my spot. I drove around the block hoping to find parking nearby, but every spot was taken. The nearest open space was at least 4 blocks away, and I wasn't about to walk that far in my state of exhaustion. So I made a decision. I parked directly behind the car that was in my spot, effectively blocking them in. I dragged myself up to my apartment and fell into bed without even changing out of my scrubs. The last thought I had before passing out was that I'd probably have to deal with an angry neighbor later, but that was a problem for future me. 6 hours later, I woke up to the sound of honking. Loud, persistent honking that wouldn't stop. I rolled over and tried to go back to sleep, but then the honking was replaced by the sound of someone knocking on doors in my building. The knocking got closer and closer until finally there was a loud bang on my door. I groaned, rolled out of bed, and shuffled to answer it. Standing in my doorway was a furious man I'd never seen before. He was wearing a button-up shirt and slacks, clearly dressed for an office job. He asked me if I was the owner of the blue Honda parked behind the silver Audi. I told him yes, it was my car, and explained that I had parked there because someone took my spot. He looked a bit embarrassed for a moment, but quickly recovered. He told me that the Audi was his and that he needed to get to work, then asked if I could move my car. I agreed to move it, but said I would need a minute to get dressed first. Then I closed the door in his face and went back to my bedroom. I was still exhausted, and now I was annoyed too. This guy had taken my spot without a second thought, and now he was demanding that I accommodate him. I decided to take my sweet time. I showered, brushed my teeth, and changed into fresh clothes. I even made myself a cup of coffee. About 20 minutes later, I heard more knocking. He called through the door, asking if I was coming and stressing that he really needed to get to work. I called back that I was on my way, but then took another sip of my coffee before setting it down and heading to the door. When I opened it, he complained that he was going to be late for work and begged me to hurry up. I apologized, claiming I had been asleep when he knocked. I walked down to the parking lot with him trailing behind me. When we got to my car, I patted my pockets and frowned. I told him I had forgotten my keys and would need to run back up to get them. I jogged back up to my apartment, took my time finding my keys, which were right on the counter where I always leave them, and then headed back down. When I got back to the car, I didn't immediately get in. Instead, I popped the hood and started fiddling with the engine. He asked what I was doing now, his frustration obvious. I explained that sometimes my car doesn't start right away, and that I needed to do this to get it going. This was a complete lie. My car was only 3 years old and ran perfectly, but he didn't know that. I continued to mess around under the hood for a few more minutes. The man was checking his watch every 30 seconds and sighing loudly. Eventually, he tried to reason with me, saying he understood I was upset about the parking spot, but this was ridiculous. He claimed he had no idea it was my spot, and insisted there were no assigned spaces in the lot. I corrected him, explaining that everyone in the building knows which spots belong to which apartments as an unwritten rule, and that I've been parking in that spot for 5 years. Finally, I closed the hood and got into my car, but I didn't start it right away. I adjusted my mirrors, my seat, and even flipped through radio stations. He pleaded with me again, saying he was already late. I looked up at him with an innocent expression and apologized for how long it was taking, adding that sometimes my car doesn't start at all. But of course, when I turned the key, my car started immediately. I slowly, very slowly, backed out of the space, giving him enough room to get into his car. When I drove past him, I rolled down my window and cheerfully wished him a great day at work. The look he gave me could have melted steel, but I just smiled and drove away to park in my spot. I never saw his Audi in my parking spot again. For context, I've been legally blind since birth due to a rare genetic condition. Although I have no functional vision, I wear special glasses that help protect my eyes from light sensitivity and physical damage. My job at the downtown call center is perfect for me. I've memorized the bus route, know exactly how many stops until mine, and have become pretty independent despite my disability. I even named my guide dog Buddy. He's been with me for 3 years and is basically my eyes. That Tuesday morning started like any other. I boarded the 8:15 bus with Buddy, found my usual seat near the front, reserved for disabled passengers, and settled in for the 20-minute ride. I could feel Buddy lying at my feet as I listened to an audiobook through my earbuds. About 10 minutes into the journey, I felt someone tap my shoulder aggressively. I paused my audiobook and removed one earbud. The woman rudely demanded that I give up my seat. She explained that she was a single mother and needed to sit down. I was confused since there were typically plenty of open seats on the morning bus. I apologized but explained that this was a designated seat for disabled passengers. I told her I was blind and needed to sit there and suggested there should be other seats available. The woman accused me of lying. She questioned why I wore glasses if I was blind, stating that blind people don't need glasses and calling me selfish. I tried to explain, but she cut me off. I began to tell her that many blind people wear protective glasses, but couldn't finish my explanation. She interrupted, insisting that I stop pretending. She complained about having a child at home waiting for her and standing all morning. She pointed out that I was young and healthy and demanded I get up. I felt Buddy getting restless at my feet, sensing my discomfort. Several passengers started murmuring around us. A passenger defended me, telling the woman to leave me alone. They pointed out my guide dog as evidence that I was clearly blind. The woman insisted I was faking it. She questioned why anyone would bring a dog on a bus unless they were trying to get special treatment. What happened next was so shocking that I'm still processing it. Without warning, the woman grabbed my glasses right off my face. I gasped, reaching out to try to get them back, but couldn't see where to grab. I pleaded with her to return my glasses, explaining they were specially made for my condition. The woman taunted me, saying if I were really blind, I wouldn't need glasses. She announced she would prove it. Suddenly, I felt an excruciating burning sensation in my eyes and face. It was like someone had thrown acid on me. I screamed in pain, my hands flying to my face as tears streamed down my cheeks. She had pepper sprayed me. The woman loudly declared that if I were actually blind, it wouldn't hurt because my eyeballs would be dead already. The pain was unbearable. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Buddy was barking frantically. Passengers around me erupted in outrage. A passenger expressed shock at the woman's behavior and called for someone to contact emergency services. Someone else identified themselves as a doctor and asked everyone to give me space. Through my agony, I felt gentle hands guiding me. The doctor instructed me not to touch my eyes and identified themselves as a medical professional. They said my eyes needed to be flushed immediately and asked the driver if there was a first aid kit with water available. The bus driver called from the front asking what was happening and if everyone was okay. A passenger shouted back that a crazy woman had just pepper sprayed a blind girl. I heard commotion as the bus pulled over. My attacker suddenly changed her tone. The woman demanded to be let off the bus immediately, saying she needed to get home to her child. The bus driver said nobody would be going anywhere until police arrived and that what she did was assault. The woman protested, calling the situation ridiculous. She defended her actions by claiming I was faking being blind and she was just proving a point. The doctor explained that her reasoning was complete nonsense. They provided a scientific explanation about how pepper spray contains capsaicin, which causes intense burning by irritating pain receptors in the eyes and skin. They clarified that even blind people have nerve endings that detect pain and would feel burning, tearing, and inflammation like anyone else. The doctor concluded that her actions were both ignorant and criminal. My face and eyes continued to burn intensely. Buddy stayed close, occasionally licking my hand for reassurance. Police and paramedics arrived about 10 minutes later. As the EMTs treated me, I heard the police questioning witnesses. The police officer told the woman that she was under arrest for assault and battery and began reading her rights. The woman expressed outrage at being arrested, mentioning again that she was a single mother and insisting that I was faking my disability. The police officer responded that multiple witnesses stated otherwise and noted that I had documented medical records of my condition. The EMTs continued treating my eyes and face, explaining that the burning would gradually subside but might last several hours. One of the officers approached me after I was stabilized. The police officer offered to give me a ride home after the EMTs finished treating me. They asked if I would be willing to come to the station the next day to give a formal statement. I nodded, still in shock from the entire incident. 2 weeks later, I testified at her court hearing. The judge was harsh, noting that targeting a disabled person showed exceptional cruelty and ignorance. My attacker received 6 months in jail, 3 years probation, and was ordered to complete 200 hours of community service at a center for the visually impaired. I still get anxious riding the bus sometimes, but Buddy helps keep me calm. I work at a major telecom company. Started at the call center, dealing with angry customers all day long. It was exhausting, but I stuck with it. 6 months ago, I finally got promoted to the complaints department. Better pay, slightly better hours, but still stressful as hell. Our department handles all the formal complaints that customers file against the company. We investigate each case, determine if the customer deserves compensation, and either approve or deny their claim. Simple enough in theory, but lately it's been a nightmare. For the past 2 months, we've been severely understaffed. People quit left and right because of the workload, and management hasn't replaced them. The result? We're drowning in complaints, and we can't process them fast enough. The Telecommunications Regulatory Authority gives us exactly 15 days to resolve each complaint. If we miss that deadline, the company gets hit with a fine. These fines aren't massive individually, but they add up quickly when you're dealing with hundreds of late cases. So management declared crisis mode. The unofficial policy became just approve everything small. If the claim is less than the fine would be, just pay it and move on. Not the most ethical approach, but it kept the regulators off our backs. One Tuesday morning, I found a massive claim on my desk. This customer was demanding compensation that was easily 100 times what the regulatory fine would be. The complaint was already 14 days old, meaning I had exactly 1 day to resolve it before penalties kicked in. I immediately went to my supervisor. I explained about the huge claim that was due tomorrow and asked what I should do, mentioning that the amount they were asking for was ridiculous. My supervisor looked at the paperwork and remarked with surprise at how large it was, explaining it was too big for him to authorize. He told me that in this case, it would probably be cheaper to take the fine and properly investigate later. He said he would check with his boss and get back to me. That sounded reasonable to me. I went back to my desk and continued processing other cases for the rest of the day. My supervisor never got back to me. The next morning, day 15 for this complaint, my supervisor's boss appeared at my desk looking irritated. He questioned why the complaint was still unresolved on its 15th day. I explained that I had spoken with my supervisor yesterday, who had said it was too large to auto-approve and that he needed to check with upper management. My boss reminded me that we were in crisis mode. He insisted that everything gets approved regardless of size and that we absolutely couldn't afford more fines from the regulator. I tried to reason with him, pointing out that the claim amount was literally 100 times higher than the fine would be, suggesting there might be a more sensible approach. He shut me down immediately, saying he didn't care about the difference in amounts and ordered me to just approve it and move on because we had hundreds of other cases to deal with. I tried one more time, stressing that this particular case really needed to be investigated first, as it looked suspicious. He repeated his order to approve it, making it clear this wasn't up for discussion. I knew what was really happening. This guy's quarterly bonus depended on minimizing late cases. Fewer late cases meant a bigger bonus for him. He didn't care about the company losing money as long as his performance metrics looked good. I reluctantly agreed but added a condition. Since he was overriding standard procedure for a claim this size, I would need his signature on the approval form. He dismissed this requirement as trivial and asked for the form. He signed it without even reading it properly. I processed the approval and moved on to the next case, knowing full well this would come back to haunt someone, probably me. 2 weeks later, all hell broke loose. I was quietly working at my desk when I heard shouting coming from the management offices. The sector director, 3 levels above my position, was in my boss's office, and he was furious. You could hear him from across the floor. He was shouting about how someone could possibly approve this claim. A few minutes later, I got called in. When I entered the office, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. My boss looked pale, and the sector director looked like he was about to explode. The sector director asked me directly if I had processed this complaint. I confirmed that I had. Immediately, my boss tried to throw me under the bus, claiming I had done it without proper authorization and that he had no idea about it. I objected to his version of events, reminding him that he had specifically ordered me to approve it despite my objections and that I had told him repeatedly that it needed investigation. My boss denied this, insisting he would never authorize something this size without proper vetting. The sector director then asked a critical question: who had actually approved this payment? I told him that my boss had done so, and I had the form with his signature as proof. I pulled out my copy of the form from my folder and handed it to the sector director. The boss's face went from pale to bright red. The sector director asked my boss if that was indeed his signature. My boss reluctantly admitted it was, but tried to claim that I hadn't explained how large the amount was. I refuted this, explaining that I had specifically told him it was 100 times more than the fine would be, and that it needed investigation. I added that he had insisted it be approved immediately because of crisis mode and not wanting to miss his metrics. The sector director asked me to wait outside. I left the office and went back to my desk, heart pounding. 20 minutes later, the sector director stopped by. He told me that the complaint was completely fraudulent and part of a sophisticated scam they had been tracking. He emphasized that this was exactly why these things needed proper investigation. I began to explain my position again, but he interrupted, assuring me that he knew I had tried to follow proper procedures. He said they had all the documentation they needed and that I wouldn't face any consequences. He thanked me for following proper procedure with the signature requirement. 3 days later, my boss was gone. Cleaned out his desk over the weekend. My supervisor told me he'd been fired for gross negligence and potentially costing the company a fortune. I'm still in the complaints department, still overworked, but at least I know that covering my own back was worth it. Documentation saves careers, folks. Being the middle child between an overachieving sister and an effortlessly charming brother meant I was always treated a little differently. Nowhere was this more obvious than when it came to medical care. I was diagnosed with asthma at 8, but my mom saw it as more of a hassle than a real concern, while my siblings got immediate attention for even the smallest issues. When I broke my wrist at 13, my mother waited 3 days before taking me to a doctor, claiming it was just a sprain. That same year, my brother got stitches within hours of cutting his chin. My sister never went without her acne medication, but I had to beg for inhaler refills. Throughout my teens, I confronted my mother about this unfair treatment. When I asked to see a doctor for persistent headaches, she dismissed me, saying I was just trying to skip school and comparing me to my perfect attendance sister. When I needed prescription refills, she complained about the cost while never hesitating to cover my siblings' medical expenses. At 18, I got a job with health insurance and took control of my medical care. The doctor was shocked at my poorly managed asthma and put me on a proper treatment plan. I also discovered an undiagnosed thyroid condition that explained many symptoms my mother had dismissed for years. I moved out at 20, limiting contact with my family, but not cutting them off completely. I built my own life and kept them at a safe distance. Last month, my mother called in tears. She'd lost her job, my father was threatening divorce, and my siblings were unavailable. She needed a place to stay. She pleaded that she had nowhere else to go. I hesitated, reminding her that she hadn't been there for me when I needed her. She got defensive, insisting she had raised and provided for me. I confronted her about her medical neglect, citing specific examples. She denied everything at first, then made excuses. I told her I wouldn't help unless she acknowledged what she'd done and explained herself. That's when the truth came out. She admitted that she and my dad thought I was careless and didn't pay attention to anything, so they decided investing in me wasn't important because I didn't care about myself. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The neglect wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. I asked if being disorganized meant I didn't deserve proper medical care. She responded that I lost everything: homework, backpacks, even shoes, and questioned why they should spend money on specialists when I couldn't remember to take medicine. I reminded her I was a child who needed help, not punishment. When she pressed about whether I would help her, I refused. I thanked her for finally telling me the truth after years of wondering what I'd done wrong. I told her to find somewhere else to stay. I wouldn't invest in someone who decided I wasn't worth basic care. I blocked her number and told my siblings what she'd admitted. My sister was shocked, and my brother eventually went quiet when I listed the instances of neglect. 2 weeks later, I received an apologetic letter from my mother. She wrote that losing her job had made her realize how it felt to be abandoned when you need help most. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I'll forgive her, but for now, I'm focused on healing. The truth confirmed what I always suspected. The problem was never me, and knowing that has made all the difference. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.